Two countries, two currencies, two economies built on ambition and sun-soaked freedom. But only one turns hard work into real financial power. You stand at a crossroads. One path leads to America, a land of opportunity, bold income, and complex systems. The other leads to Australia, where balance meets high living standards. Both promise prosperity, but in very different ways. So who really wins when it comes to money? Let's start at the top, income potential. In the United States, the average gross monthly salary is approximately $5,500. In Australia, it's slightly lower at about $4,700. A noticeable gap, but not the full picture. Gross income shows what you earn, but what matters most is what you keep after taxes. That's where the story takes a turn. American workers face federal income tax rates that range from 10% to 37%. Then come state income taxes, ranging from 0% in states like Florida to more than 10% in places like California. Social Security and Medicare contributions add roughly 8% more. On average, this leaves Americans with a take-home pay of around $4,000. In Australia, there is no state income tax. Federal tax bands run from 19% to 32.5% for most people, plus a 2% Medicare levy. After deductions, the typical Australian takes home about $3,500 monthly. So Americans keep more. But what do they face in return? Let's talk housing. In mid-sized U.S. cities, renting a one-bedroom apartment averages around $2,000. In top cities like New York or San Francisco, rent can soar above $4,000. In Sydney, rent for a one-bedroom sits around $2,000. In smaller cities like Brisbane or Perth, it often drops to $1,500. Australia isn't cheap, but its pricing doesn't skyrocket as drastically, which means renting feels more manageable depending on where you land. Next, living costs. Weekly groceries in the U.S. for a couple cost around $150. In Australia, the same costs about $130. Produce and dairy are generally cheaper in Australia, while imported goods tend to cost more. Fuel? Americans pay roughly $4 per gallon. Australians, when converted from liters, pay closer to $6 per gallon. But here's the twist. Americans drive more, commute longer, and rely heavily on cars. Australians lean more on public transport, especially in cities. So while fuel is cheaper in the U.S., mobility is costlier overall. Now let's rewind to 2022, when inflation hit globally. The United States saw inflation climb to 9%. Australia followed with a peak at 7%. Both nations raised interest rates, trying to cool the fire. Since then, prices in the U.S. for food, rent, and health insurance have continued rising, though slower. In Australia, inflation is stabilizing, but property prices remain a concern. No one escaped inflation's impact. The difference is how each country manages the aftermath. Let's shift to healthcare. In the U.S., employer insurance premiums average about $500 per month per person. A simple hospital visit could cost $2,000 or more. Without insurance, a broken arm might be $8,000. Australia's Medicare system covers most essential health care. Doctor visits typically cost nothing to $50. Hospital care is often free for citizens. Private insurance exists, but it's optional for many. So while Americans might get faster service with private coverage, Australians enjoy financial protection across the board. Let's talk education. American students at public universities pay around $10,000 per year. Private schools exceed $40,000. Most students take loans with interest. Australians pay roughly $7,000 per year in tuition. With the HEX Help system, repayment begins only after surpassing an income threshold. Payments adjust with earnings, making education more accessible. So while Americans might access elite institutions, Australians avoid overwhelming debt. What about retirement? U.S. citizens rely on Social Security, which averages $2,000 per month after retirement. But doubts about long-term sustainability persist. Australians benefit from superannuation. Employers contribute at least 11% of salaries to individual retirement funds. These grow over time and belong entirely to the employee. That means Americans lean on the government. Australians build their own retirement safety net. Let's talk currency strength. One US dollar currently exchanges for about 1.5 Australian dollars. But currency strength only matters when you cross borders. At home, purchasing power matters more. US prices can vary greatly by region. Australia has more uniform pricing nationwide. So it's not just about how much your currency is worth, it's what it buys you daily. So what does life after taxes really feel like? In the US, you might pocket more cash, but you also carry more personal financial risk like health, college, and retirement. The pressure to hustle never stops. In Australia, you start with less, but essential systems support you. That can mean less stress and more stability. Neither system is perfect. Each offers something valuable. So ask yourself, do you want to run faster in a higher stakes race? Or would you rather jog longer with fewer hazards in your lane? Let us know where you stand. And if you want more global finance showdowns like this, hit subscribe to the Money Manual. The next Money Wars battle is coming soon.